Good morning, students. Today we will talk about a new topic, that's respiration. Respiration is generally called the gases exchange, but it must not be confused with the breathing. So, breathing and respiration, these are the two different terms. Breathing is actually the gases exchange, but respiration that occurs at the cellular level. There is no proper definition of respiration, as respiration can be defined a process in which respiratory substrate in which respiratory substrate is broken down into carbon dioxide by oxidation accompanying the release of So, respiration can be defined as a process in which respiratory substrate is broken down into carbon dioxide and by oxidation accompanying the release of energy and stored in the form of ATP. So, this is called respiration. It can be represented by a general chemical equation. Respiration can be shown by this equation, but this is not a single equation reaction. It is a multi-step process. So, respiration is generally represented as the oxidation of glucose, which liberate carbon dioxide and water and also release a large amount of energy. So, this is called respiration. This energy, that 2870 kilojoule, that is equal to 686 kilocalories. Now, what are the different types of respiration? On the basis of the presence of oxygen, that oxygen is available or not, the respiration can be of two types. That is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. If oxygen is available and the compound, the respiratory substance is oxidized in the presence of oxygen and break down into carbon dioxide and water. This is called aerobic respiration. While in some conditions and some organisms that respire in the absence of oxygen, so in this case the respiratory substrate that gets broken down into alcohol and lactic acid. And some amount of carbon dioxide is also released. There's a one major difference is also there in aerobic anaerobic respiration. In case of anaerobic respiration, the substrate is not completely breakdown, so energy is released in less amount. So this is the difference in aerobic and anaerobic respiration. It can be represented aerobic respiration by our simple equation like glucose plus oxygen that broken down completely into carbon dioxide and water, and large amount of energy is released. While in case of anaerobic respiration, the reaction can be represented as the glucose is not completely broken down and they convert into carbon dioxide and lactic acid, or alcohol, and less amount of energy is released. That is 247 kilocalorie, which is comparatively very less. That is 247 kilojoule, which is comparatively very less. So, what are the respiratory substrate? The compounds present, organic molecules that present in our body that can be broken down or consumed to release energy, they are called respiratory substrate. Normally, it is generally used as a carbohydrate. Carbohydrates are, in carbohydrates, hexose sugars are generally used as a respiratory substrate, and this kind of respiration is called floating respiration. In which carbohydrates are consumed. But in some conditions, when the glucose or the carbohydrates are completely consumed, then the reaction involves different kinds of substrate in which other compounds are used as a respiratory substrate. That present in the protoplasm. So that is called protoplasmic respiration. In which other compounds are used as the respiratory substrate. Now we that carbon dioxide is released and oxygen are used for the respiration. So on the basis of that, a quantitative term is given, that is respiratory quotient. Respiratory quotient, a quantitative term is given. Respiratory quotient is the ratio of the amount of carbon dioxide released to the amount of oxygen used. For different respiratory substance, the respiratory quotient is different. Generally, in case of carbohydrates, if the respiratory substrate is carbohydrate, hexose sugar like glucose, in which the number of carbon dioxide released, that is equal to the number of the oxygen used. So the respiratory quotient is the number of the carbon dioxide released, that is equal to 6, and oxygen used is equal to 6, then the respiratory quotient is 1, means unity. So in case of carbohydrates, the respiratory quotient value is unity. In case of fat, if the respiratory substrate is fat, in fat the amount of oxygen is less. So when it undergoes oxidation, it needs higher amount of oxygen. So in case of fat, the number of carbon dioxide released is less than the number of oxygen used. So the respiratory quotient of fat is less than 1, as in case of palmitic acid, it is a fatty acid. The number of carbon dioxide released is 4, while the oxygen used is 11. So the respiratory quotient that becomes less than 1, that is 0.36. In case of protein, respiratory quotient is also is less than 1, because number of carbon dioxide released is less than the number of oxygen used. So the respiratory quotient is always less than 1. Now, the respiratory quotient of the organic acids. acids like formic acid, as you can see, the oxygen amount is more, so it needs less amount of oxygen for the oxidation and the higher amount of carbon dioxide is released. So the respiratory quotient of organic acid or the formic acid, that is always greater than 1. Respiratory quotient of organic acid, that is always greater than 1. Now, if we talk about the anaerobic respiration, in which there is no oxygen is used and only CO2 is liberated, so you can see it has very high value. It is always greater than the number of oxygen used. So the respiratory quotient of anaerobic respiration like if CO2 release is two and oxygen is not used, then it is infinity. So here it is the topic of respiration that we introduced today. Thank you.